I hope this is recording properly. It's a brand new Macintosh MacBook Pro, which means it is a complete and utter piece of garbage because billionaires are what? Criminals. And capitalism is what? That's right, a complete lie. In fact, it's worse than a lie. People don't realize this. In America, no joke, check out this insight. Capitalism is technically illegal in America because almost all of it is a criminal enterprise based on fraud. The concept of a free market is fraud. It's deceptive to the consumers. The idea that competition lowers prices is idiotic. It doesn't even make any sense. If you have one company versus two, it's night and day. The fire department, we know, doesn't have to pay its CEO billions. But if you privatize the NYPD and let's say just created FDNY, you create just two of them. Two fire departments. There's Joe's and there's Pepsi's and there's Coke's fire departments, okay? Well, now we have to pay for two CEOs. Before, we only had to pay for one CEO. So even if you're paying that asshole $10 million, capitalism says, no, we're going to create competition. Now there's two CEOs, you got to pay $10 million each. Oh, but they're competing, so we're going to have to raise their salaries each year under the conceit that, well, we have to pay our CEO more because there are competitors paying more. And how are we going to attract the finest CEOs and the finest talent if we don't pay as much as they do? And so the board members give themselves huge pay raises, and they all give themselves huge pay raises, just like Congress, and all the politicians get to vote on their own pay raises. Now, if politicians are allowed to vote on their own pay raises, and we all agree they are, you've got a criminal conspiracy. It's illegal under numerous laws, but I think I'm digressing here. Again, capitalism on its face, and if you want to dig deeper, is a fraudulent criminal enterprise by a whole bunch of capitalists who bought news media outlets to mislead the public and to control who gets elected and who does not get even close to being elected. They then install Republicans and Democrats, obviously, who kick back trillions of dollars in tax breaks to your Time Warners, your ABCs, NBCs, CIAs, all of them. There's only one reason you create a media outlet. It's not to tell people news. Nope. It's not because they think people need more Kardashian. Nope. It's done for the exact same reason Stalin and Hitler used media, to manipulate public opinion. That's not a secret, and I'm digressing. Sorry. Ugh. I just want you people to realize, a lot of you think this stuff is wrong. It's not wrong. It's completely illegal. But who's going to go after the media moguls? The attorney generals, they were all installed by the media moguls. The federal judges and the court system, the federal judges were all put in by the media moguls. Okay, well, we got a problem here then. Again, remember, they won't tell you the truth about anything. Every single thing about the American political system and its government is lawless. Example. Don't mean to digress. Example. We have three branches. They told us it was for checks and balances, right? You can't trust the executive branch, so you have the legislative and judicial branches to police the executive branch. Cool, sounds great on paper. Wait a minute, no it doesn't. The judicial branch is technically in America, the judicial branch is more powerful than the executive and legislative branches combined. Because the federal judges have lifetime appointment, they can't be touched, they can't be removed, etc. And the federal judges can jail any politician, even the president, in 3 minutes if they chose to. That's why no executive or legislative branch would ever permit judges, good people, to become federal judges. Now, who appoints federal judges? The executive and legislative branches do. So that is some checks and balances. Who picked the FBI agents who are investigating Gotti? Well, he should be allowed, right? That's what, remember, our government says you let Gotti hire the investigators investigating Gotti. That's what you do, duh. That's due process, meaning fairness in a legal process. It's equal protection, right? When you're arrested by your friend, and you're prosecuted by one of your best friends, and the jury is made up of all your best friends, and the judge is one of your best friends. That's how you do it. Oh, wait a minute. That's completely illegal. If the federal judges are appointed by the executive and legislative branch, we have a violation of the Constitution of the United States of America. It's treason. It's literally treason. The goal is to cancel the Bill of Rights. The goal is to cancel fairness in our legal system. The goal is to cancel fairness in our election system. We got Bush and Cheney. Remember, everyone forgets this. Thanks to Supreme Court judges appointed by Bush's own dad. It's not even slightly legal. But why would they even pretend to be slightly legal? Are you going to do something if you find out the truth? Nope. You're going to sit on your ass. Of course, I make these videos hoping some of you will spread the word and spread the word. Wait a minute. How can, on its face, the Electoral College is illegal? On its face. You said we should vote because we choose the politicians, but that's not even remotely true, meaning you lied to your customers, meaning it's called what? Fraud. When you lie to your customers, it's called fraud. It's a felony. You do it more than 3 times, it's now organized crime. Is the Justice Department going to police the news media? These fucking super mobsters? Who is going to police the super mobsters? The billionaires who own all these money-losing media outlets that are actual shell corporations designed for other purposes, not to make money. They're not money-making ventures. They're not legitimate businesses. They're shell corporations. New York Times, Daily News, New York Post, in New York alone. All 3, they don't make a penny in profit. They lose $30 to $100 million a year. So why would billionaires keep these money-losing businesses? There's only one possible reason. Fraud and conspiracy. Let them. Ask them. Why do you keep these businesses that don't turn you any money ever? Don't never turn. You lose $100 million a year at the New York Times. Then why don't you sell the paper? It doesn't make you any money. Oh, that's right. Because it allows you billionaires to force robot A or robot B down our throat in every election. And then those robots kick back to you like Giuliani and Bloomberg did. The New York Times put Bloomberg and Giuliani in office. Giuliani and Bloomberg then kicked back over $6 billion in cash to the New York Times via economic development, a.k.a. corporate welfare, a.k.a. kickbacks. Quid pro quo. It is the most perfect racketeering case you will ever find. It is 1,000 times better than any single case or every case combined they had against the mafia, the actual Italian mafia. Think about it. The entire mafia in American history killed fewer people in their entire existence than the New York Times did in one day of bombing Iraq because of their stories of weapons of mass destruction, which were false, which were not fact-checked, meaning the New York Times intended to deceive their customers. Remember, the New York Times says, we were wrong. Our stories about weapons of mass destruction planted by the CIA were, in fact, incorrect. Okay, well now you really almost shouldn't be allowed legally to continue as a media outlet. Your argument is, we printed stories that were wrong. Okay, well then how are you, if I'm an auto mechanic and I can't fix any cars, or every car I fix doesn't work, I can't legally be an auto mechanic anymore. Do you miss that point? Now, if that was the only story the New York Times got wrong, we can jail them all, and we can make sure they're never allowed to work in media again. Because their argument is, remember, they didn't say we simply got it wrong. You can ask them, how did you get it wrong? Is it possible you did not fact check? That's their argument. Well, yeah, we didn't actually fact check. Because then you wouldn't have gotten the story wrong. Meaning they had intention to deceive their customers. This wasn't an honest mistake. It was, you understand? This wasn't a drunk driver who kills a family of 5. That wasn't his intention. The New York Times' intention was to scratch the government's back. Listen, we'll help you steal trillions of dollars from the Iraqis and the American public. Halliburton, the rest of you will steal all the money. You all get filthy rich. But we want something in return. You're going to kick back billions to us because the New York Times makes no money. We're bankrupt. The New York Times just had to borrow $1 billion or $2 billion from Carlos Sims, the Mexican billionaire, just to keep their lights on. They're all fake businesses, people. Spread the word. The media is there. Hitler can't do anything. Hitler is one lone asshole shooting off his mouth. It's the Nazi soldiers who are the real villains. The New York Times. Bush Cheney don't exist. The New York Times put Bush and Cheney in office. The New York Times lied to their readers that Bush was a legitimate candidate. The New York Times systemically lies to its customers in almost every story, almost every day. And I can prove that. And you can ask them, hey, why don't you debate CXB? And they'll say, well, they won't even answer you. Like Bill Cosby, they're not going to answer their critics. But I'm still digressing. Oh my God, with 9 minutes, holy fuck. But you need a little bit of preface here. Now, one thing that really gets my goat, really pisses me off, Pardon my, I should apologize as usual. I'm supposed to be talking in a British accent because it's better than my own voice. And I haven't showered today because I'm a little busy trying to fight thousands of the most powerful Goliaths in human history. Remember, the New York Times is more powerful than every mafia on the planet combined. I'm taking on John Gotti times 1,000,000. This is serious work. That's why the New York Times has tried to murder me repeatedly. No, they didn't. The New York Times even admits they tried to murder me. They admit they covered up all of my false arrests. Weird, you wrote about all these other arrests, but you wrote about none of these arrests by this guy. That's interesting. That's suspicious. And you wrote about when I was convicted here, even though that was fake. You left out all the facts. You watched them fake everything. You watched them fake every single law. It's weird that you put when I'm convicted, but you don't think it's as newsworthy usually when I'm acquitted. That's interesting. That's a little suspicious. Your number one critic, you've smeared him repeatedly. That almost smells suspicious. Anyhow, one thing you know about me is I hate censorship. I will never silence my opponents. In fact, I do the exact opposite. And you can see the evidence of this on all my web pages, etc. I take my opponent's words and I use them against them. I don't silence a Hillary Clinton. I'm going to take her stupid ass comments and use them against her. Do you see? That's what honest people do. Only liars use censorship. You cannot be a liberal if you ever use censorship, ever, ever, ever. You're a right-wing nut job. Because right-wingers have low intelligence and they can't stand truth and they can't debate their opponents, so they need to silence opposing viewpoints. Again, you can say, oh, there's a lot of liberal kids today. Those aren't liberals, they're fake liberals. Just like there's plenty of fake conservatives. Rush Limbaugh is a fake conservative. In fact, most conservatives are fake. You know, you'll find a conservative pundit, for example, on Fox News, who's not fake. His salary will be under $60,000 a year because he's a fiscal conservative. He'll live in a very tiny, modest home, if at all, maybe he rents. Anyone who gets a big salary at Fox is a liberal. They're not fiscally conservative. If they were, they'd take a small paycheck. That's called fiscal conservatism. Rush Limbaugh doesn't buy a cheap car. He bought an expensive car. They all did. Sean Hannity drives an expensive car. Ann Coulter. They're all liberal in every category. They all had premarital sex. I can go on and on and on, but you know what I'm saying. Every conservative is fake. And almost every liberal is fake. Because you're going to find it's not about political partisanship. It's about humans. Humans are evil. Humans are the problem. Humans are corrupt. We could put if we made Mother Teresa president of the United States, she'd be dirty within a week. Just like we slam cops, but you go try it. Hey, are any of you honest out there? Go ahead and become a cop. Do it. And stick to the law and do the right thing. You won't last one fucking week. The entire machine is dirty. But my point is this. There are no good humans out there. Occupy Wall Street still works for the Republicans. No, they don't. Then debate me, assholes. I'm here. But let's get to my fucking goddamn point. I'm so sorry. I really can't apologize enough. And I hate that I look like a fucking pirate, so fuck you. It's accidental. Suck it. This is what I want to talk about today. Now, one of the things that annoys me the most, obviously, censorship. Censorship is an automatic admission that the person is lying, that the person knows they're lying, that the person thinks they can't make any intelligent points. So you simply have to silence the opposing viewpoint. Oh, let me make that point just so I don't look like an idiot. Hillary Clinton, in one of the debates, she said, I'm tough on Wall Street, and I'm going to be tough on Wall Street. I'm going to go down there, or she said, I did go down there, and I told them, cut it out. Now, I don't need an opposing viewpoint. I want the whole world to hear my opponent's argument. Hillary's argument that she's going to tell them to cut it out. I don't need to disprove that. It looks like a fucking 3-year-old. No, that's not true. I think even, well, maybe 3-year-old wouldn't know this, but 4 or 5-year-old, they would say, you know what I'm going to do? Why don't we, when they break the law, why don't we put the guys on Wall Street who break the law into jail, mommy and daddy? Why? They broke the law. Why don't we put them in jail? But even 60-whatever-year-old Hillary Clinton she couldn't think of that. Wait. You know what I'm going to do as president? I'm going to put criminals who steal billions of dollars in prison. She never said that. She said, I'm going to tell them to cut it out. It's the dumbest comment ever uttered in a debate ever. The entire news media said it was brilliant. Commanding is one of the words they used a lot. Commanding performance. Because all the news media stands to gain a ton of money by installing her. That means, now just so you know, you can sue and anyone can sue and we could arrest every media person in the United States if they pretended Hillary was a legitimate candidate. She's not by all criteria. Remember, they can't even report about Hillary Clinton without disclosing their financial conflicts of interest. You cannot, literally, no media outlet in America can discuss Hillary Clinton by law unless they first tell their customer, full disclosure, we stand to gain a lot more money, corporate welfare, etc., tax breaks, etc., if we get Hillary in the White House and not Bernie Sanders. Do you see? Now they have to, by law, anything less than that is deceptive. They don't want their customers to know. We're doing business with Hillary. We've done business with Hillary in the past. We're going to do business with Hillary in the future. You have to disclose it. You stand to gain money by misleading your customers, you fucking fucktards. They're like Bernie Madoff times 1 billion. I mean, it's not even close. They're the biggest, most brazen criminals I've ever seen. And they get away with it because most people still believe what the media tells them. So now let's get to our main point here, ladies and germs, which is, I want to just give you some fun examples because it's so good reading. I mean, I hate that I read the shit. The New York Times will write an article. It's almost always false. It's based on their business agenda usually. And with the web, you saw everybody started allowing comments. New York Post allowed comments, Daily News allowed comments, New York Times allowed comments, etc. They quickly learned that was a mistake. They thought it was good. Yes, we get more traffic, we get more engagement, more people, more views, etc. The problem is it allows smart liberal activists to disprove each story we write directly beneath the story. Also, everybody seems to agree on this. Most customers, actually today, in 2015, we almost don't care what the article says. We want to go straight to the comments because we know the comments are going to have facts in there that the reporter lied about. We know that the commenters aren't getting paid. Well, some of them are trolls, paid trolls. But we know we're going to see comments that tell us stuff or give us insights that we didn't get from the fucking article that was done by a fucking paid stoolie. The comment section today is more important than the articles. You saw that in the New York Times gate, which is what I'm getting to. The New York Times, they had a story up last week about commenting. They have 14 censors on the payroll who block comments that embarrass the New York Times. They allow some meek ones in so they don't look totally fascistic. And that tricks some people. I saw 3 comments that criticize New York Times. Yeah, and they'll include comments that are insipid or very mild. Kid baby gloves. Whereas I just flat out point out I say the story has dozens of lies. Here's one. And I explain why it's a lie. Here's 2. And they ban every comment I post. The New York Post very quickly banned me and then I do different ideas and they banned me. Then they came up with shadow ban technology to make me not realize I had been banned. It looks like on my computer that my comment is there, but it isn't. You go to other computers and my comment doesn't exist. It's shadow ban technology, which is, they're not going to tell you this, illegal. It's meant to, what? Deceive. The only purpose of shadow ban technology is this, to deceive your customers. That's called fraud, you fucking idiots. Duh, this isn't rocket science. So, the New York Post then eventually in the last year, they got rid of all comments because they realized we can't, our business model is based on lying. ABC's business model, all media outlets, their business model is based on lying, not even just with politics. It is with entertainment, etc., etc. You don't know, if you don't know how the publishing world works, you don't want to know. It's worse than your wildest fears. But the Daily News started hiring moderators. They claimed, they all had to use the same lie, which is, no, we're not censoring our critics or dissidents pointing out our lies and our stories and our business corruption. We hired moderators. We don't have any money, but we borrowed money so we could hire moderators to moderate the comment section, just to get rid of rude comments. There's a lot of bad discourse on there. People write stupid things, redundant comments, insults, not nasty attitudes and stuff. We want a polite, civil discourse. And then you look and all the comments are insults, childish insults. You could arrest them right now. Again, there's nobody in law enforcement in America who's honest. Nobody. I know there's some people going to be like, there's some people. You're a fucking idiot. There's nobody. Because remember, even the best people in law enforcement are still dirty as fuck. They're just not as dirty as the average cop or DA. Well, that's not true. Every DA I've ever dealt with as a criminal has been utterly corrupt. Every DA I've dealt with and prosecutor I've dealt with as a victim of horrible, violent crimes has proven to be dirty, utterly dirty. That can't be coincidence. So I wanted to I'm sorry to be so long-winded. Oh my God, we're at 20 minutes. Let's get right to it. The New York Times, now the Daily News, it seems like in the last month, the end of 2015 here, has now decided to get rid of all comments because people can look and go, you're not moderating because you only want to allow intelligent discourse. You're only allowing idiotic comments. Insults, cheap insults, racist comments. It looks like a Facebook forum. Except the news media says they pay high salaries to moderate this stuff to keep it intelligent, mature, interesting to read, etc. Now, of course, that's utterly false. What's most amazing is, again, everyone seems to tell me, New York Times is not only the dirtiest paper in America, it's the most childish. That surprises people. They think, well, sure, they lie, but they're not childish. They're a stuffy old gray lady is what it's called. Really? Their slogan is all the news that's fit to print. That looks like a fucking 9-year-old Donald Trump wrote their slogan. Versus the New York Post, which is, or at least was, the oldest continuously published newspaper in America. It's a pretty sobering, dry comment. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. But whatever, as a boast, it's pretty dry. Oh, you're the oldest continually published newspaper. Whoop-de-doo. The New York Daily News's slogan was New York's picture paper, because they used to have a lot more photographs than the New York Times or the others, I guess. The New York Times, all the news that's fit to print, is the most childish slogan of any news media outlet you or I have ever heard of and will ever hear. Fair and balanced by the New York Post. It's false, fair and balanced. But even that's not as childish as all the news that's fit to print. The New York Times is a bunch of fucking junior high retards. Now everybody's like, no, they're educated. You're fucking wrong. You're stupid if you believe that. The New York Times, but you're fucking illiterate fucking morons. They can't even fucking correct half the typos. They're fucking liars. A complete fraudulent organization, and they need to fucking hang for treason. That's just one thing they need to hang for. Remember, even they say, well, we helped steal trillions of dollars from the taxpayers, kill 4,000 American soldiers in Iraq, which was a fake war. The New York Times now says that the New York Times lost their customers trillions of dollars. I agree with the New York Times. The question is, when is law enforcement going to do its job? It's not. It's up to you and I. Step one, we spread the word. The number one problem on the earth is the media. If we fix the media, there's no more bad politicians. There's no more bad cops. There's no more bad big business. There's no more bad. Because media will expose it. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and it will stop. Media is the only problem in the world today. And you have the power to help us stop these motherfucking super Nazis. Remember the first thing the Nazis did before they gained power? They bought a newspaper. That's how they obtained power. That's how they won the elections. Newspapers. So let's get to the New York Times. The New York Times has gotten a lot of shit from its customers because they do have a lot of educated customers who are liberals, who are smart, who say, whoa, why are you allowing some comments and blocking others? And the comments you print versus the comments we've seen you censor is double suspect. So one of the things I'm really vicious on and going after is the New York Times. One of the cases I'm really working on is just copying their comment sections. These are the comments that were vetted and that they said, these comments are brilliant. These comments are smart, they're mature, civilized, and they elevate the discourse, blah, 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 blah. So let me read you some of these. Now, to put it in context, the story was about New York City for 20 years had Republican mayors. Those mayors were installed by the New York Times, the New York Post, the Daily News. The New York Times, for example, lied to its customers tens of thousands of times. They lied in every single issue for 20 years to protect the Republican mayors in exchange for billions in cash. That's how it works. Not even a secret. Of course, the New York Times doesn't usually like to disclose that, which shows you they think it's illegal. If they didn't think it was illegal, they would disclose that. The New York Times discloses its conflict of interest in some stories, not usually the monetary conflicts of interests. Like, to give you an example, if the New York Post is writing something about Fox, they will disclose Fox is our parent company. So the customer knows there was a conflict of interest in this story. New York Times won't do it. With all their financial conflicts of interest, they won't do it. They're the most dirty paper, at least in America. I would argue in the whole world. Step forward, historians. You don't know fucking shit about what the New York Times is doing. You know a little bit. So let me give you a couple examples here. Now, this is just from yesterday, a story about the current mayor, who is a Democrat, Bill de Blasio. He's actually surprised me. He's mostly very honest. And all the reporters know that. He's very honest for the most part. He's actually very smart. Giuliani and Bloomberg both had the intelligence of a fucking retarded 8-year-old. And they ruined everything in the city. It's not even open to debate. Every day the New York Times reports the city's in ruins, the city's in ruins. New York Post, all of them say the city's in ruins. People can't afford it. It's like, well, who ran it for 20 years? Your Republican gods, your fiscal conservatives who created the largest tax hikes in U.S. history, the largest debt in a municipal level in U.S. history. They are the exact opposite in every way as what the media reported. That's the massive organized crime, fraud, and conspiracy. This article is not that interesting, the actual underlying article I'm talking about here. De Blasio just says he's 2 years into his first term, and he sat down with the reporters, and he said, they got to ask him questions, and he said things like, what do I regret the most? I don't get to spend as much time with my family as I used to. They said, have you made any mistakes? He said, yeah, you go in, you try to do things. You're not going to pull off everything you want to try. Some of it's very ambitious. Some of it isn't, blah, blah, blah. My job is I'm attacking the status quo, the rich people who run New York City. And they robbed New York City. They murdered it. I'm challenging the status quo. Of course I'm going to get flack from the machine. I'm here to rock the boat and flip the apple cart. So now they then have the comments. Now, the very fact that they allowed comments is the first crime. Because they wouldn't allow comments on almost any of the stories about Mayor Bloomberg for however long they had the internet. He was in office for 12 years. Now, I did lots of tests on this because I'm the world's foremost expert on Giuliani and Bloomberg. If that sounds like a boast, ask me for details. You have no fucking clue. The New York Times would not allow comments on stories about naked Emperor Bloomberg. Any guesses why? That was part of the quid pro quo. Listen, your readers think I'm a fucking Nazi. And I am a fucking Nazi. And they can list endless concrete evidence that I'm a Nazi. Super Nazi. So you have to just make sure no comments are allowed of any kind. And they did that. So the very fact that they allowed comments on the Bill de Blasio story yesterday is scandal one. That's a felony right there. Fraud and conspiracy. But let's move on. Now remember, what I'm going to do is simply read you some of the comments that the New York Times said were very brilliant, very mature, very articulate, very insightful, and never redundant. And honest. Here's Noah from Canada. I'm sure he knows a lot about de Blasio because this guy lives hundreds of miles away. Noah writes, this is his entire comment. He didn't back his own cops. ... Nuff said. Wow, that... First of all, we could tell it's mature. By the proper grammar. You did say you wanted to elevate the discourse, and proper grammar was one of your goals. So it looks like you lied to us, maybe. Now, the comment here, I'll give you just 5 reasons why that comment is a felony. That's the entire comment. He didn't back his own cops, de Blasio, the mayor, Democratic mayor. That's one of the talking points that the 1% has used consistently to try and divide and conquer. And it's kind of worked. Even de Blasio, they threatened him so much and did so much to smash him and smear his name in all the newspapers and TV news media that he choked a little bit. He was reigning in the NYPD, and then he quit because he was getting threatened so much. He didn't back his own cops. Nuff said. Says the guy who has no fucking clue because he's from Canada. That they printed, that should be a 6th point of felony. You can't be having people who don't live in New York City giving much input on how well New York City is being run. Fucking liars. Oh, where'd you get your information, Noah? I read it in the New York Times. Oh, well then that's kind of circle jerk. That's kind of mafioso, yeah. Here's 5 reasons why, for example, because nobody knows more about law than me. Nobody knows more about fucking logic than I do. I'm a logician, and I wish I wasn't, so shut the fuck up. It's not a boast, it's lament. Number 1, the comment is anti-Mayor de Blasio. Now that's a huge problem. They can't by law print, hear me out, they cannot by law print any comment that criticizes de Blasio without them disclosing before. They have to first say, we stand to make billions of dollars if we can get Mayor de Blasio to resign, or if we can at least get him to lose the next election, his re-election. He's going to win re-election. That's how it works. It's a Democratic town, and the incumbent in America wins 95% of the time, no matter what they do. If they spend no money, they win automatically. If they don't campaign, they win automatically. The power of incumbency, you're already in power. That means you can cut deals with all the unions, give them a little extra money so they all endorse you. You can give out more corporate welfare to the media. Oh, what do you know? They're all endorsing you. So normally, and even if you don't do that, the incumbent wins because humans only vote on name recognition. They know your name. You've been in office for 4 years. Well, I don't know this guy. I don't really like what he's doing, but I don't know what the alternative is, so I'm going to vote for asshole number one. So, what was my point? I blanked. The New York Times cannot have any content in its paper pro-Bloomberg or anti-de Blasio that doesn't disclose we stand to gain a lot of money if we praise Bloomberg. We stand to lose a lot of money if we praise de Blasio. They have to admit their financial conflict of interest. Anything less is deceptive to the customers. It's fraud, conspiracy, and much more. So, first felony, he didn't back his own cops, enough said. It's anti-de Blasio comment. The New York Times didn't put a disclosure in. They want their readers to think, wow, everybody's turning against the Democratic mayor. Maybe I should vote Republican next time too. That's that comment doesn't say anything intelligent. It's not even fucking honest. Never mind unintelligent. Here's second felony. The moderator editors who said this letter is brilliant. This letter meets our criteria. It's really smart. It's really mature. Great grammar. Well written. Articulate. Blah. And it's filled with insight. Oh wait, no it isn't. That was fucking front page news for months. Nice try, assholes. They have to disclose that they want de Blasio to lose. They have to disclose that they got billions from Bloomberg. Those are two separate disclosures they must by law make. Anything less would mislead the reader of the article. And it would mislead the readers of the comments. Do you see? If they put that disclosure in there, if they admitted their financial conflict of interest, nobody would fall for their lies. Do you see? Remember, using other people's lies to cover your ass doesn't make a difference. They would say, we just print random different comments, different opinions. You can't do that. People don't realize this. Even good people don't realize this. The New York Times can't allow a comment that is misleading or wrong, no matter who the author is. If it's their own customer, I think I've already made this point before, but I'm going to give you, I should be getting into the specifics here. It doesn't matter. You can't say, because, I'm sorry, I'm so inarticulate right now. It's just like there's so many points of deception. I'm like, oh, which one do I pick next? Hey. If the New York Times prints a comment that they know is false, it doesn't matter that they didn't author the comment. They are now a vehicle helping spread this misinformation or disinformation to their customers. They are part of the crime of fraud and deception. Do you see? To say, oh, we didn't write it, is a bogus excuse. You spread information you knew were false to your customers, knowing that misinformation would help you get rid of the Democratic mayor and put another Republican in who's going to give you another $3 billion in tax breaks in exchange for lies and nonstop lies. That's the message they're sending to de Blasio now. De Blasio, maybe you should wake the fuck up and start cutting us some fucking checks. Because if you learn from the past, you'll know that once you start cutting us the fucking checks, then we're going to stop fucking beating the shit out of you every day in newspapers, and maybe you'll get to stay mayor. It's the most perfect racketeering case ever. Let's go on. About this comment, he didn't back his own cops. Enough said. New York Times knows the comment is false. For example, de Blasio backed his cops up way too much. Got them new bulletproof vests they didn't need, bought them all kinds of other gadgets they didn't need. In fact, everybody agrees he's trying to make them all wear lapel cameras on their lapels. Now, we all agree, cameras on police helps police. You're sticking with police because the police don't lie, you see? So the camera will prove the perp lied. and the cop told the truth. The camera's going to prove that Laquan McDonald came at the cops with the knife or whatever they say he had. The lapel camera and the dash cameras always vindicate the police. So when de Blasio called for more police cameras, he was saying, we're going to show that the police don't lie. So why does everyone say that's against the cops? Unless everyone secretly knows the police are lying. See? All fraud and conspiracy. De Blasio actually supported the cops too much, even if you use their own spin. More cameras proves the cops don't lie. But we all know that's not true. And even that's why the cops say, he's not supporting us. He wants more cameras. It's like, thank you. You just admitted. The cameras will prove you lied, not that you told the truth. Let's move on. Everything de Blasio did do that was seemingly anti-cop, the New York Times knows is what the voters asked for. So de Blasio is simply doing the job he promised to do. People don't realize this, maybe. When de Blasio ran, he was not very well known. And when he ran, nobody thought he was going to be the winner because he was going against other Democrats who were much more famous and more hooked into the status quo and the 1%. Nobody expected de Blasio to win it. Even I didn't. And when he won it, he won it and then started doing exactly what he promised to do. He ran a campaign with only like 3 major points. One of the biggest points of his campaign was, I'm going to crack down on police misconduct. I'm going to crack down on police misconduct. After saying that, he won 75% of the vote for mayor. It's the biggest landslide in U.S. history. No one has ever won an executive position with 75% of the vote as a non-incumbent. Look it up. It's never happened. He is literally the most popular mayor in U.S. history. By law, quantifiably, you can't debate it. 75% of voters said, this guy is against the cops, the NYPD, I'm voting for him. De Blasio won all demographics. He didn't just get the poor black people and the drug dealers. He got the rich white males. He got all... You know who won the rich white female vote? De Blasio. He won every single demographic that exists. That's pretty darn popular. So the newspapers keep saying he's unpopular. He's unpopular. And if we just keep saying it, people are going to forget that he won 75% of the vote and is the most popular ever. You see? Now, de Blasio simply keeping his promise. If he goes after the police completely and doesn't back them up, he's doing the job he promised to do. The New York Times knows this. So printing this letter, he didn't back up his own cops, that's another level of fraud and conspiracy. And here's one more point. The comment, if you read it, is kind of childish. He didn't back his own cops up. Enough said. Sounds like a dumb cop wrote it. Doesn't sound like an articulate educated person wrote it. So if it says enough said, you could arrest the New York Times right now because that's not articulate. That's not mature. And they promised their readers the reason they were censoring comments was to weed out the childish, the moronic, the insulting. So that comment alone proves they lied to their customers about their motives for censoring comments. Let's give a couple more examples. Let's move on. Here's one. Now remember, this is the New York Times. By law, they'd have to argue in a court of law or the court of public opinion that this is an articulate, intelligent, mature, insightful comment. Here it is. Ava Seavey of New York says, "Hear, hear. Very well said. Agree 100%. I'll read it again. Hear, hear, very well said. Agree 100%. Wow. It's not that articulate. That looks like a 9-year-old could have written that. Where's the insight? In fact, now she's responding to a comment before her. She's replying. But they have a recommended button. So if you completely agree with somebody has written, you hit recommend. Click. These words are then, by law, pure rhetoric. There's no words there. There's no statement. There's no comment. She's simply doing this. So why did you have to type it out? There was a button so you could just do this. You fucking liars. It's to make it look like all these people are against the Democrats. And we want to put another Republican back in because they ran this city well. I mean, world's largest debt of a city ever. But that's leadership, says the New York Times. And everybody, and rich and poor in New York City, and Republican and conservative and liberal and Democrat, are all crying the same thing. New York City is unlivable. They can't afford their bills anymore. Record tax hikes, record electricity bill hikes, record subway fare hikes. Everything, record unprecedented inflation in U.S. history under Rudy Giuliani and Mike Bloomberg. It's not open to debate. It's easy to see. And everyone's complaining about it every minute. Ask some friends you know in New York City. Is it expensive now? Did it get cheaper under the Republicans or more expensive under the Republicans? I can go on and on. Ava Seavey's comment is empty. It's empty rhetoric. There's no insight. She makes no point. And it's redundant. She's just saying, I agree with the guy before me. Well, that's redundant. Never mind the recommended button you could have just pushed. They just got caught lying to their customers again. I'm just going to give you a few more random examples of what the New York Times, remember, everybody thinks they're really educated, the old gray lady, really mature. Nothing could be further from the truth. There's no paper more immature than the New York Times. That's not to say they don't have some good writers. Here's another one. Oh, amazingly enough, this one is also from Ava Seavey. Now, if that's true, you can cuff them right now. One of the New York Times arguments was, we want to give more, if we just allow blind comments and we don't censor them and moderate them, we're just going to have zillions of comments by the same 3 people. We want to spread the opinions out. Let everybody have their say, not one person repeatedly posting comments. That's what they said about my comments. But I'm just proving each person wrong. So if I reply to 5 comments, I'm not saying the same thing. I'm saying your post is wrong and here's why you're wrong. Then I see another letter that's obviously wrong and I will post, your letter is incorrect, here's why. And I'll make some bullet points. And that's what I do. They will remove they'll make sure none of them are allowed on because it doesn't fit the business agenda. It defends de Blasio and makes the New York Times look like a bunch of criminals who should go to prison. Here's what Ava Seavey writes. Now, amazingly, again, you mean the first time she wrote something completely stupid and redundant that proved on every level that the New York Times lied to its customers and committed fraud. But wait, why not do it again with the exact same lying author? Here she writes. She's responding to somebody else again, who's talking about the horse carriages. In New York City, we have horse carriages in Midtown. So they have horses walking through traffic with tons of pollution, honking cars, taxis driving like mad. It's inhumane, it's insane. And the voters voted in 2013, November 2013, they had a choice between the Democratic mayor who said, I'm shutting these horse carriages down, this slavery machine, I'm shutting it down, it's inhumane, I'm shutting it down. He got 75% of the vote from saying that. Every demographic, rich white people said yes, poor black people said yes, 75% of the city said yes. So Ava Seavey writes, actually, yes, there is something that proves, she's saying that the city is against de Blasio on the horses. So here, actually, yes, there is something called the Quinnipiac poll, which has consistently in the past 2 years shown that 2/3 of New Yorkers want the horses to stay in slavery. I believe that number would be far higher if the wealthy, misguided, elitist animal rights groups did not spend millions of dollars publishing erroneous information to people. Now wait, notice, elitist animal rights groups. You now have the New York Times, again, proving they're a Republican right-wing paper. They're supporting not only the right-wing side, but it's the false side. But note that they're supporting the right-wing Nazi side. Actually, that's unfair. The Nazis cared more about animal rights than the New York Times did. Yikes. Think about that. Hitler was a notorious animal rights lover. And the Nazis did a lot to protect animals. He hated humans, and Hitler was right about that. Right there, the New York Times got caught. Remember, this is one that their 14 staffers who are censors said, this meets our guidelines. Right-wing lies is their agenda. The Anyone But Quinn movement, which elected de Blasio, spent millions of dollars. Who backed it? Wealthy real estate developers who want the land the stables are on. Follow the money. Now, she's using a talking point the New York Post put out. Talking point. Now, the New York Times knows that. If they printed that comment, right there, it's a felony. I mean, there's 10 felonies in this one, but I'm not going to go that far. 1. Oh, she cites the Quinnipiac poll, which consistently in the past 2 years has shown that 2/3 of New Yorkers want the horses to stay. Really? Sorry, we had an actual referendum vote where the voters turned out, and they could vote for the guy, Joe Lhota, Lispin Joe Lhota, Giuliani's henchman, who's running for mayor on the Republican line in 2013. He said, I'm gonna fucking stand up for the horse carriages and the police. And the voters, every demographic, rich and poor, said, fuck off, asshole. It's not open to debate. That's irrefutable fact. It's irrefutable fact that 75% of the voters chose de Blasio. It's irrefutable fact that his main campaign points were rein in the police, Get rid of charter schools. Another one, the media all says the city backs up the charter schools. Well, we had a vote on it. You fucking liars. And almost everybody said the charter schools are corrupt and have to go. The media just lies. But remember, the media is going to make money off the charter schools. So again, it's all financial kickbacks. It's all completely a corrupt racket. That's why all the newspapers write lies about me. Left wing and right wing alike, they all wrote shitloads of lies about me to say, don't listen to that guy. He's fucking crazy. Sometimes it sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but he's not. He's just crazy. He's crazy. Did we mention he's crazy? Fucking douchebags. But it's insane. What they printed there was one of the biggest lies I've seen in a long time. Check this out. They says the Quinnipiac polls, which have show that New Yorkers don't back up the Democrat. They back up the Republicans. Okay, but the actual vote showed that it wasn't even close. Almost nobody supported the Republicans. And that was an actual vote versus polls, which you can cheat any which way you want. And no polls are verified. I don't know if you humans know this. No poll is verified. There's no independent auditor saying, did you say you liked the Republicans or Democrats? But when we have a vote, it's a little harder for them to cheat it. 75%. And all the news media continues to hammer it. The people don't support the Democrats. The people don't support the Democrats. Nobody supports the Democrats. We support the police. We support the charter schools. We support the horse carriages. Over and over again. That's why they won't allow me to rebut Ava Seavey. But wait, it gets worse. The Quinnipiac poll. Well, how fake is it? Maybe the New York Times doesn't know the Quinnipiac poll is fake. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, we can look at the news. The day after the 2009 election for mayor, when Bloomberg stole a third term. The day before the election, Quinnipiac poll told everybody in New York, if you don't like Bloomberg, the Republican mayor, tough luck. He's 20 points ahead of the Democrat. There's no way Bloomberg can lose. So if you hate him, if you're one of the millions of voters who want Bloomberg gone, you're better off just staying at home and not voting because there's no prayer of him defeating the Democrat. And lots of stupid voters believed the polls. The next day, the New York Times reported that Quinnipiac's numbers were 400% off. Bloomberg squeaked in with 4% of the vote. The 20% number was 400% wrong. Quinnipiac said that. The Marist poll said we were 100% wrong. The New York Times reported that the polls were 100 to 400% wrong. Do you know what that means legally? It means by law, they can never, ever again mention poll numbers or even mention those poll companies without saying, truth be told, their poll numbers, if their poll numbers were off 400% that time, who's to say they're not 500% off this time? You have to disclose that. You can't mislead your customers. Quinnipiac when you were found to be 400% wrong on a poll, and remember, it wasn't simply a poll, your mistake changed the election. And it just happened to reinstall a billionaire who gave $16 million to Quinnipiac. Actually, he gave more than that. That was a gift to the college, $16 million, little hush money. Here, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. And then Bloomberg gave Quinnipiac millions by hiring them, quietly, to do internal polls for his own campaign. That's when they went out and they would do real polls, because Bloomberg's people would be like, Mike, everybody fucking hates your guts. But they don't want to tell Bloomberg that. But they do internal polls because they want to be sure, where do we need to spend money? How much money do we need to spend? And Quinnipiac came back to them. Remember, this is all private, in-house. Nobody's allowed to know in the public. And he gave them millions of dollars for these polls. Partially, he didn't care what they had to say. It's a legal bribe. Do you see? It allows him to give them 10 million here, 5 million there, 20 million here, but it looks like legit business. Regardless, what they came back was, Mike, when we really asked people on the streets and at their homes, they all want you gone. And now remember, they can't say, no, we didn't say that. We can get all that information, Quinnipiac. You can burn all the files you want. But here's one smoking gun that even Bloomberg admits. All the polling companies lied and did it deliberately. And here's one smoking gun. Bloomberg spent $110 million to win an office that no one had ever spent more than $10 million. Do you hear me? In 2009, for his third illegal term, he spent $110 million to win the office of mayor of New York City. No one, not even unpopular and hideous Republican nightmare Giuliani, spent more than $10 million. You see? Now, if Bloomberg, if Quinnipiac and the rest of the polling companies had come back to him privately and said, we did real polls because you want to know how much money you're going to have to spend to win this re-election. If they had come back and said, Mike, the people think you're great, he wouldn't have had to spend $110 million. Do you see? Got ya! Remember, his first election, $75 million versus the max $10 million anyone had ever spent. Second time, now he's the incumbent. He's super popular. The newspapers say he's super popular. He spends $85 million. Wow. If you were popular, you'd think you wouldn't have to spend any money. Or if you were if you were super duper popular, you wouldn't have to spend $85 million to your opponent's $12 million or whatever, $16 million in that race. They got to spend extra money because Bloomberg had spent so much money. The Campaign Finance Board allowed them to spend more money the Democrat side. I think the max was $16 million versus $85 million. Now remember, he's already in power. Now you would only spend that much money if you were not popular, because if you were popular, you'd have to spend less money than your opponent. See, if the Republican was popular, he'd spend this much and still beat the Democrats spending this much. Only if Bloomberg knew he was hated by everybody would he spend $75 million, $85 million, and then when he was super duper popular, and the New York Times said he should cancel the term limits that we have always said are important. You can look it up. The New York Times said, we need term limits. They said it over and over again. And then as soon as their patrons said, let's get rid of term limits, they said, we need to get rid of term limits. It's all there in their that's why it's the most amazing racketeering case of all time. All of their lies are in print. They published every single one of their crimes was published. So my point there, do you see, is it clear? Am I making this clear? That Bloomberg spent $110 million to win a third election. Versus, was it 9 or 11 million de Blasio spent? Not de Blasio. I think it was $9 or $11 million for his Democratic opponent in 2009. That proves the polling companies told him, Mike, you're in trouble. You have to spend more money than ever before if you hope to fucking win this election. And by simply saying 20%, the day before the election, he's at 20%, he's 10%, said Maris, he's 10% ahead. There's no chance he can lose. So stay home. Democratic voters, give up. Stay home. Don't waste your time. And it worked. He squeaked in with 4% of the vote. So that's why this comment is super dishonest and illegal, and then printing it is super illegal by mentioning Quinnipiac, because it was no less than the New York Times themselves who said Quinnipiac is a bogus polling company. Gotcha. Let's look at some other things here. This one's great. Jimmy from New York says, we knew, I'm going to read his mistakes, I'm leaving them in. We New Yorkers are paying heavy taxes and high cost of living. We are not interested in wasting our precious tax dollars for some amateur politician to learn how to be a good mayor. Mr. de Blasio, what about just step down and allow someone truly qualified to lead this great city of New York? Now, did you notice most of that's rhetoric, meaning it's illegal. According to the New York Times, it's illegal because they promised their readers they were not printing any stupid comments. They were not printing. Nope, rhetoric will not be allowed. We are only going for educational, informative, insightful, polite, mature dialogue that is insightful, that teaches me something. So let's see, what does Jimmy's comment teach us? We New Yorkers are paying heavy taxes. Well, that's false, because for 20 years, the New York Times said Giuliani and Bloomberg were lowering our taxes, lowering all our bills, reining the budget in, and being fiscal conservatives. So we are paying very low taxes, unless the New York Times says it lied, and even Jimmy appears to be saying the New York Times lied to us for 20 years. Game over. You can arrest them all tomorrow. Throw away the key for that one sentence. The one sentence. But what else? We are not interested in wasting our precious tax dollars for some amateur politician to learn how to be a good mayor. Now, de Blasio in the article made a flawless point. He said, yeah, we made some mistakes. Every administration does, and every administration will admit that. Bloomberg admitted it repeatedly. Giuliani admitted to making mistakes. Bush did. Clinton did. Obama did. Every politician in U.S. history has admitted to making mistakes on the job. It's a learning curve. So that second sentence is it, you could put the New York Times in jail for a long time with just that second sentence about their precious tax dollars for some amateur politician to learn how to be a good mayor. Now remember, if the article is anti-de Blasio, the New York Times is already going to prison because they didn't disclose they had a reason to print anti-de Blasio letters. Mr. de Blasio, what about just step down? Now, dozens of the articles, the comments I copy and pasted were 81 comments. Dozens of them say you should step down. Now, that's called redundant, meaning the New York Times lied to its readers again, that they moderate the letters and comments of their customers, their paying customers. They moderate them to eliminate redundancy. It's about just pure goodness and pure logic and wisdom we want to see in these comments by your readers, because you have a lot of educated readers. Well, I'm not sure Jimmy is one. Jimmy may not actually be that educated. Let's see some more people. Here's Juan Swift from Spain. Thank God Juan in Spain knows how well de Blasio is doing in New York City. The number one quality of life issue in New York, at least on the Lower East Side, is bicycles that are taking over the streets and sidewalks. In reality, many are unlicensed motor vehicles. Some driven by delivery people in both directions at breakneck speed. What? Well, that can't be. You said Giuliani fixed the problem. You said de Blasio fixed the problem. And I can show you tens of thousands of articles by the New York Times that said this. Just like they said low taxes, etc., etc. Fiscal conservatism. Traffic signals are universally ignored. The situations for pedestrians, especially the elderly and disabled, is extremely dangerous. Oh no, is extremely dangerously. I forgot how articulate these comments they're printing are. There is no evidence that bike riders know or care about what the laws are governing their riding. And police officers almost universally ignore rampant riding right through red lights and riding motorized bikes in the wrong direction on sidewalks. Whoa! This reader, Juwan Swift, is saying the police aren't doing their jobs. So maybe de Blasio shouldn't back up a bunch of lazy fucking government employees who aren't doing their jobs. Which is it? You can't print two opposing viewpoints, New York Times, because one of them is wrong, and you're not by law allowed to print any argument that you know is false or misleading. And have your lawyers come chat with me in a public forum. This letter is so stupid, but let's go on. Let's commit to it. The large number of bikes in Manhattan is a wonderful development, but unless traffic laws for bike riders are strictly enforced, the anarchic situation will only get worse. Really? But every video has proven that pedestrians are the number one criminals in New York, pedestrians, and also the most dangerous people in New York, pedestrians. They jump up between cars, they run red lights, they're maniacs. Everyone agrees pedestrians are the most dangerous. Weird that he's singling out bicycles. Suspicious. Publicize what the laws are for bike riders loud and clear and enforce them. So you're saying the NYPD is broken, but that was de Blasio's argument. All lies, all the time. That should be the New York Times slogan. Mr. Mayor, and enforce them, Mr. Mayor, or you will lose the votes of many law-abiding and older voters and disabled people and citizens who care about the quality of life on the streets. Manhattan should not be Ho Chi Minh City. You got a problem right there. I can prove that New Yorkers aren't law-abiding. In fact, watch, I'll go even further. I'll prove there isn't one law-abiding citizen in New York. I could start with jaywalking. How many New Yorkers jaywalk? Even the tourists jaywalk. So if you use the word law-abiding, you use those two words, you broke the law, and the New York Times broke the law by printing your lies. It's all lies. I can tear apart everything and go into longer detail. You know I can. I can go on forever. But let's try to skim through these. N. Ginsburg, MD of New York, says, stunningly incompetent. He, de Blasio, is making a mockery of a great city that under Bloomberg became livable for the middle class and the poor. parentheses, and even the rich, end parentheses. De Blasio is a divider, sets one against the other. Very sad for the citizens of New York. Now, please don't make me go into details about why that letter is fucking completely asinine. Stunningly incompetent. Okay, you don't back it up. If you notice, everything he said was vague. Now, again, you can't by law print a vague letter because it means the person's lying. When a person's telling the truth, they aren't vague. I would say de Blasio's done a lot of good, and then I would give a couple examples because I'm not lying, and I would want people to know that here's evidence of my claim. Anybody can say the moon's made of cheese. If you don't present evidence, there's only one reason you do not present. Even you can make a quick point. If de Blasio is stunning and incompetent, you would have given us one example. Like, for example, I would have said Bloomberg is stunningly incompetent. Really? Why? He created the largest debt of any city in human history. Bam! Now people can look it up. I want them to look it up because then they're going to, oh my God, the debt. No wonder the newspapers didn't tell us what our debt was for 20 years of Giuliani and Bloomberg. Only now are they talking about the debt. Curious. Or example, I'll give you another example. They say Bloomberg's incompetent. Let's say Bloomberg, he spent $110 million for what everybody else spent $10 million for. Stunningly. Not stunningly incompetent. You can't name anybody more incompetent. Ever. $110. Your wife comes home and says, honey, I bought some cookies at the store. How much were they? They were $75 million. Oh, well, that is competent. He's making a mockery of a great city that under Bloomberg became livable for the middle class and the poor. Now, this is comedy because every newspaper, including a little one called the New York Times, has written dozens of articles about how New York City is unlivable, unaffordable, and how the poor and middle class have been pushed out. But they have to print this false letter because they need, for the New York Times to survive, because they make no money, they need a new Republican mayor and a new Republican governor who will give them billions in kickbacks. Everything about this is a lie, but I'm not going to get into it. De Blasio was a divider, sets one against the other. Giuliani was famous, and Bloomberg was famous for one thing first and foremost, being a divider. Bloomberg, everybody says Bloomberg worked for the rich and fucked over the poor and the middle class. Every Republican says that. Every liberal says that. Ask a bunch of cops. Hey, did Bloomberg make New York City more livable and affordable? Find me one cop who says that. Fuck off, liars. The New York Times, again, what's really offensive to me isn't that the New York Times is lying about everything. The New York Times always lies about everything. All news media lies about everything. And you have no clue. You think, well, they lie a lot. No, you don't know the details. They lie. Even when they tell the truth, they do it in a way that deceives the customer. It's amazing, their commitment to bullshit. Wait, but they allow Steve gets a reply. Steve from New York writes, he's replying to this dude who says, Steve writes, how is New York livable for the middle class with real estate prices reaching such high levels? Now, they printed that because, again, if you're going to be an effective Nazi, you can't have just all pro-Bloomberg and all anti-de Blasio letters. That looks suspicious. Even a stupid person can go, okay, now I can see the fixes in. So you have to put in some dissent if you don't want to look like a dictator or a super Nazi. Of course, also, everybody reading this, every single person reading this is going to see that and go, nobody thinks New York City is more livable. Bloomberg left the roads in ruins. Every driver will tell you Bloomberg destroyed traffic. In fact, I'll defend Bloomberg. Bloomberg's not even as bad in some categories as the Republicans and Democrats say he is. That's how backwards this shit is and false. But everybody knows that the first letter is a lie here. So they have to temper it with a couple of semi-honest letters. Will also rebuts the first letter and says, livable for the poor and middle class? 2 question marks. Where have you been these last 10 years? Average price of available one-bedroom apartments now exceed $3,000 per month. And then he puts a link to a national rent report from June 2015. See what truth tellers do? We back up what we say. Will continues. The cost of living in New York City has risen 20. I'll do it in a stupid voice if you want. Of course, he's articulate, so it doesn't fit. The cost of living in New York City has risen 23% in the last 5 years. That's a pretty large inflation ratio. And that's a trend that began during the Bloomberg years. He again puts a link to The Economist, a right-wing rag. Wouch. He then writes, he continues, the city is divided between the wealthy 1% who benefited greatly during the Bloomberg years and everyone else. De Blasio does not bear responsibility for this. Now, that letter is legal because Will is telling the truth. And the New York Times printed it not because they wanted to, but because they had to print. You can't just have all letters that slam one side or the other. It fails as a propaganda technique. Let's go with, that was a long one. Let's pick a couple short ones here. Richard from Miami writes, can Bloomberg run again? Maybe if we beg him and give him the job in perpetuity. That's super smart, said the New York Times. Super articulate, very insightful. Except everybody knows we have a thing called term limits. So the letter is less than, to call it rhetorical is an insult to rhetoric. You see, it's beyond rhetoric. It's an empty letter that says nothing except the one thing the New York Times wants it to say. We need to put Republicans back in power so the New York Times can get more corporate welfare and bigger tax breaks. Let's move along. It's just shocking. This is like a pedophile raping a child in the middle of Walmart. Do you understand? The level of criminality by the New York Times may be unparalleled in the history of mankind. Criminals are generally a little more clever. These guys it's just pure fuck you. We're just fucking complete lying Nazi thugs. Let's take Eagle from Boston, Massachusetts, a guy who doesn't live in New York, obviously, and can't really give his 2 cents. Eagle writes, good mayors don't have to say things like this. When de Blasio said, I made some mistakes. I've done some good, and he listed some of the things he's done good. He listed some of the things he made mistakes on. Good mayors don't have to say things like this. Neither do average mayors. This sort of public self-flagellation is solely the province of the really bad mayors. And the sooner New York City manages to shake this loser off, the better. Well, that is a really insightful point, except if every other politician did it, as the story points out, then you just lied. I can go on in further detail, don't make me. Let's take another one here. JSD of New York writes, finally, an issue that de Blasio and I agree on. I want him to do a heck of a lot better as well. That's not what somebody with a low IQ could write. Or a 12-year-old could not write that. That is what a super educated, very articulate, very insightful, very mature person would write, says the New York Times. And remember, it's not one person in the New York Times, it's every staffer. 14 censors, the public editor and her team, the executives and their team, the publisher and their team. All said, that is fucking smart. That's a smart, mature letter. Damn, that's a smart letter. It's rhetoric. Empty, pointless rhetoric. Now, compare that to the comments I put. I would put a comment that says something like, example, let's say, de Blasio won 75% of the vote. Look it up. That means the people of New York City chose him over the New York Times, New York Post, Daily News, and the Republicans. The New York Times has a motive to block letters like mine and dissenting viewpoints. Period. They won't allow that. Now, they don't realize they would say, you're insulting us. I'm telling your customers the truth that you ripped all your customers off. If you ban that letter, that's a whole felony offense right there, on several felonies, motherfuckers. Let's go on. Here's a letter. We'll go with opposing viewpoint. There's a few in here. Brooklyn Gal from New York City writes, de Blasio's a fabulous mayor, and I'm so grateful he's in office. I had some tragic experiences here under the Giuliani and Bloomberg administrations, and I am sure they would not have happened under his watch. I also feel that his wife's love and advice contribute to his confidence and leadership in immensely positive ways. Onward and upward. This person is partially agreeing with me, and I'll tell you, that letter's illegal. Because that letter, it's got some insight in it, but it's mostly empty rhetoric. I also feel that his wife's love, and what idiot wrote that? Fucking vacant shit. Dumb vacant shit that doesn't elevate the conversation. She could have just said, we all know Giuliani and Bloomberg were criminals and the city was in ruins under them, record crime, etc. Let's jump ahead here. We're trying to pick the shortest ones. Jerry S. from Chelsea, New York says, the worst thing about politicians like de Blasio is they promise things they can't deliver. He was either dishonest when he ran or was and is stupid. But he did deliver. In fact, the horse carriage thing hasn't gone through and the charter thing didn't go through because the New York Times helped Albany block him. See? It's deception stacked on. This is like a 5,000 piece stack of deception. It's you can't even wrap your head around. I can't wrap my head around the depth and breadth of the New York Times destruction and lies and fraudulence. You got that? Now that's a stupid comment. But at least it's not as horrible as some of the others I've read. Not as childish, maybe. I mean, that's a relatively valid point. You could say politicians shouldn't make promises they can't keep. Of course, keep in mind that de Blasio could keep it. He had everything on his side. The voters, the law, everything. And then the billionaires who ran the media started printing endless lies about him and smears to undercut him. So other politicians wouldn't want to back him up. And then they even got Albany, Cuomo, to write a new law, to create a new law. Remember, two of the guys who crafted the law, the two main guys, Silver and Skelos, were just convicted last week in federal court. They're going to prison. Whoa, the plot thickens. Fucking scumbag criminals. If you don't stand up to these fucking super Nazis, then you're part of the problem. Let's go with DPN from New York, New York. Now, I haven't read most of these, so I'm just going. I'm just so you know, I'm not cherry picking them. I'm just trying to pick the shortest ones so we can go through them quickly. DPN from New York writes, would have been nice to see him apologize to Bloomberg. For what? Notice. For what? For what? For fixing some of the things Bloomberg did? Here's an example. One of the first things de Blasio did when he entered office that impressed me, he reduced the fines on restaurants and small businesses. What Bloomberg did, because the one thing Republicans care about is raising taxes, raising revenues, so they can spend that money on fucking more military and police, more jails, etc. So, one of the first things de Blasio did was lower the fines because everybody was complaining. Every small business was complaining. They come and they give you fucking huge fines. They're not writing fines because the fucking ice scoop is properly stored. I have friends who own businesses. They were bitching. Everybody, Republicans were bitching about this. Conservatives, Democrats, liberals alike. Everyone was bitching unanimously that Bloomberg was fucking nickel and diming the city, raising fees, fines, costs on everything. Example, if you're a victim of crime and you need that fucking police report, for whatever reason, insurance or your job, they started charging you $10. You're a victim of crime. You've been raped. You now need a copy of that police report, and they're going to charge you $10? I don't think I need a second scandal of Bloomberg's billions of scandals. That's enough where most humans would say, beat that fucking Nazi to a fucking pulp. So it's weird that DPN says, would have been nice to see him apologize to Bloomberg, and then tells us nothing more. Wouldn't you, logically, if you were an adult, you would have listed an example. But he didn't. That sentence. Remember, the New York Times says that's super articulate, super insightful. Nobody believes them. Fucking lying fucking Nazi thugs. Wait, they allow Tony to reply. They won't allow me to reply and say, for what? Bloomberg ruined everything in the city? Even the New York Times admits that. Look at their articles. Here's an article about how the schools are doing badly. Here's an article about how the roads are doing badly. Here's an article about how Rikers is out of control. Every article by the New York Times about New York City said the exact same thing. Homelessness has exploded. Yes, you're right. Everything you said Giuliani and Bloomberg fixed, you're now admitting was not fixed. They started writing about Rikers murdering people and torturing people the same month Bloomberg left office. Yeah, it must be de Blasio's fault. Fucking murderous liars. Again, you don't realize New York Times has murdered hundreds of thousands of people. You watching this video could legally, tomorrow, get a machine gun and kill everybody in the New York Times. Legally. Self-defense. You're protecting American citizens. You're protecting yourself, your friends, and your family. Monetarily, with the fucking police state, etc. Now, I know you stupid people still believe the New York Times is liberal. You're stupid. Let's debate it. Here's Tony's insightful, mature, not junior high letter. Comment. Tony writes from New York. That would have taken too much class. That's what you deem to be super smart, super mature, super civilized, super insightful. DPN, would have been nice to see him apologize to Bloomberg. And then Tony, they say Tony's comment's pretty interesting too. That would have taken too much class. That is real. This is, at the least, got to give you guys credit. This is really, these are interesting comments. I'm going to think for hours about that. How it would have maybe taken him too much class. Childish garbage. Steelman from Long Island, who doesn't live in New York City, says it doesn't help the city when the governor gets wind of what the mayor wants and instantly blocks him. That's a good point. Now that letter would be maybe the first truly legal letter I've seen posted yet. Comment. He's making the point that the governor that I just made. He's saying, how you giving shit for Bloomberg, for de Blasio's for his failures, when it wasn't that he failed, it was that people above him who got a lot of money from the 1% shut him down and blocked him. Ta-da! This letter is bad, though, because the New York Times is saying it's true. They're not allowed to print false letters, and they don't print false letters. So the New York Times is saying, essentially, that the New York Times lied to its customers when they printed comments that said the opposite, or left that part out, that the governor blocked him. Fuck you. Again, in every situation, the New York Times says the New York Times are a bunch of fucking super mafioso. I'm not proving you guys wrong. You're proving you wrong. Let's do a few more. We're probably going to fucking blow this shit out with the longest fucking video I ever made. I apologize. I can admit the blame. My preface was way too long. RICO from Bayside, New York says if he wants to do better, the best thing he can do is resign. His administration has been an absolute failure. It's rhetoric. There's nothing in there. Okay? Lots of other right-wing shithead liars have already said in these comments. Remember, I didn't just read them chronologically. I'm just reading the shortest ones. Many of them say the same thing. He should resign. He should resign. He should resign. Now, remember, the New York Times said the only reason we moderate is to get rid of the redundancy and the lack of insight and the rudeness. There's nothing in there, RICO. They could go to prison for that comment alone. That's the problem. You couldn't give the New York Times enough jail time to make up for even partially their crimes. Pete from New York writes, the mayor blames the rich, blames the racist, blames the governor, blames inequality. When does the mayor own it? That's right, the progressive movement never owns it. All they have is blame and problems for every solution. It gets old pretty quick in New York. No, de Blasio offered solutions. He explained the solutions for the charter school, the NYPD, for example, lapel cameras. That was a solution. It's going to be a little harder for cops to rape girls, as they have a long history of doing in the NYPD, raping children. Right? Fucking 17-year detective just went to jail for fucking pimping a 13-year-old girl out. The NYPD are getting arrested every couple days for serious crimes. You can't even count the number of NYPD corruption scandals. You can't. It's not possible to compile them all. This article is all lies. That's right. The progressive movement never owns it. This is a fucking childish redneck asshole saying blather. It's rhetorical blather. There's no insight. All they have is blame and problems for every solution. De Blasio's solution for the horse carriages? Stop mistreating horses. Outlaw it. Maybe we can use motorized carriages for Central Park. Or human-powered. If it's not inhumane, then let you humans do the job of those horses, you fucking liars. We liberals will never, ever criticize without offering better solutions. Justice Holmes replies to Pete's completely insipid, childish, false letter. And he writes, he's from Charleston, so he knows nothing about New York City. He writes, de Blasio is not a progressive nor a liberal. He is a corporatist. That's a good point. The moon is made of cheese, because you wrote that the moon is made of cheese. There's no need to back up your comment. You said it clear. I'm reading it. The moon is made of cheese. It says it right there. The moon is made of cheese. It's got to be true. Peter Kaufman from Brooklyn writes, de Blasio's proposals come from a place of someone being in permanent government opposition, expecting they'll never be enacted, so they don't have to be realistic. It's just red meat to his base. Unfortunately, he is now in a place where his policies can and do get enacted. Now, this is an interesting letter, at least. So it does make you think a little bit. He's making a novel point I don't usually see, where he's saying the problem is de Blasio is making proposals that he knows are going to fail. Politicians do this all the time. They'll vote against a bill they support just so they can lose and they can blame it on somebody else. There's all kinds of tricks they use in politics. He's saying de Blasio, to get elected, promised the people a bunch of shit that he knew the governor and the 1% would stop. So he was just fucking sucking dick and pandering to his base. I could prove it's false, but I'm not going to because it seems relatively sincere. He's making an insightful point, could be wrong, worth debating, but it's worth thinking about. That is a legitimate letter. Whether it slams him or not is irrelevant to me. John Doe of New York writes, de Blasio wants income equality for everyone, except himself. That's the whole letter. Wow, that is 14 recommended. That is really, you make a really good point. Wow, I mean, it's very articulate. I mean, that's why you gave a couple examples to back up your fucking idiotic comment. Fuck you. Let's skip that one. That's too long. Let's go with this one. Erlene, she's responding to somebody's longer letter, writes, "Aw, boo-hoo, you have to look at homeless people. We feel for you, Chris. Here's the world's smallest violin playing for your poor walk down Broadway, all those scary homeless people. Oh. Now, I don't even know what the person's saying. I don't care what the person's saying. If you're saying that's much more elevated discourse than Facebook comments, then you're a stupid liar." Root then replies, "More than half of these homeless are from out of state. They come to New York because it's so easy to collect benefits, and besides, you go to where the money is. Homeless in Pennsylvania are homeless on Fifth Avenue. The local news has interviewed many of these homeless, and they have all the accents, and they are not from New York. Send them back from whence they came, and let the states take care of them. Chris pays his taxes, high rent, high grocery bills. He should expect to not be hassled 24/7. Erlene is a typical progressive liberal attitude." That was not a good comeback. He makes good points, Root, or whoever they are. That's absolutely legitimate. These homeless people, a lot of them from out of town. One of the things they've used is, over the last year, homelessness has exploded all over the country. It has to. The economy is going to keep sinking. People are going to continue to lose more jobs, more homes. And homelessness is going to increase all over the place. We already know that. It has consistently. The 1% in New York City realized, wait, we can use this against de Blasio. He's been in for 2 years. He hasn't solved the problem. Well, Bloomberg and Giuliani created the largest homeless population in U.S. history. It's not open to debate. Even the New York Times reported that. Fucking liars. You all reported that. So which is it? Which of your reports should we believe? But again, the truth is de Blasio has very little to do with it. It was all the Republicans and the New York Times creation, because the New York Times and their friends get some of that pie, $800 million a year for homeless services. If we solve homelessness, they lose $800 million a year. You can guess why homelessness doesn't go away. It's an entirely racket. Miss Robin P. Little of Conway, South Carolina, ladies and germs. Don't know her? Letters positive or negative. Let's see what she says. "If he quits, he will have all the time in the world to spend with his family." Let's move on. "The man is a little short of an embarrassment. He should resign. He is out of touch with political reality. Is an unrealistic progressive. Fights with Albany constantly, and wouldn't know a good political strategy if it bit him on the behind. Very little will change between now and the end of his term." That is a letter that's Facebook childish junior high crap. Also, you'll notice, redundant. She's saying the same thing that 30 other letters in here say. But let's move on. And again, does that sound like a rebuttal? He said, they asked him, what's the worst thing about the job? The press asked him, and he said, probably I don't get to spend as much time with my family. Your rebuttal is, he should resign so he can spend more time with his family. That's so immature. I can't even wrap my head around it, you fucking dumbass lies. You still think the New York Times isn't a childish junior high newspaper? You're fucking lying to yourselves. Let's pick just a couple more. I think I've made my point a little bit. And again, you notice, I don't just throw something superficial out. I'm pretty fucking comprehensive. You know why? Because we liberals are comprehensive. You know why? Because the facts always, always, always back me up and back us liberals up. Rush Limbaugh, a little more superficial. Bill O'Reilly, a little more superficial. Let's see. Looking for short ones. Brooklyn Traveler writes, privacy. Has anyone else been more willing to trot out his family to make a political point? This guy is a piece of work. That's the entire maturity and insight of their letter. I think de Blasio in the article says something about, he'd like more privacy in his private life. This person does make a good point that de Blasio used his own family in his campaign ads. However, does that contradict de Blasio saying, I would like a little more privacy? No, it doesn't. And the newspapers were going to go all over his family anyhow. That's what they do with every executive person. That's the way it works. We all know about Obama's family. I don't know if they were in his ads. We all know about Hillary's kid. I don't know if she was in any of the ads. But it's a false letter. Again, it's false. This guy is a piece of work. That is some dumbass anti-comment. There's no comment there. You see, it's pure rhetoric. Wait, somebody replies. Whitney Devlin writes, doesn't even say where she's from. Isn't that weird? Some of their readers, their commenters, are from somewhere, and some of their commenters are from nowhere. Somehow they got to remove that completely. No one that I know of, who trots his children out to make a political point, or who's been more willing to trot out his family. She writes, no one that I know of, his children are off to school. His wife works with him, and he misses his family life. Everyone has some typos here. Everyone has children off to school and will miss family life. This has nothing to do with the fact that he is mayor. That's not true. Most people work, whatever it is, 40 hours. The mayor of New York City is kind of a 24-hour job. So the article, that's a lie. It's a easily proven lie, and everybody in the New York Times knows it's a lie. Everybody knows in New York City that the mayor's job is basically 24 hours. He gets woken up at fucking 6 in the morning, police get shot, he has to show up there because that's what we demand. The rules are the mayor has to be at all the major fires, he has to be there present to show he's in charge, he's the leader. It's all fake. It's all smoke and mirrors. Giuliani and Bloomberg would do it. They'd show up at the scene of a big fire to get in the newspapers and get their faces in the cameras, say, I'm on top of it. Well, you're not putting out the fire. Who was Giuliani rescuing on 9/11? No one. So why did he get $60 million as a pimp of 9/11? Let's move on. Root then replies to these two fucktards. Let's see what they write. Root writes, Root has already gotten a comment before. Again, the New York Times said we don't want the same people commenting. That's unfair. So you'll see consistently they let the same people say the same stupid lies repeatedly in one thread. Proving again, all they do is lie. Root says, so sad that he misses his family life. He should have stayed out of politics and gone into the private sector. Oh, wait, he wouldn't know what to do. He can always resign, then he can spend 100% of his time with his family. That sure sounds a little bit like we've already heard that. Have we not already heard that essential insight? So why would they repeat the same comment? Redundant. Something they explicitly said was why they created censors and moderators to police the comments. Again, some places, they allow you to comment and then they go back and remove your comment. New York Times doesn't do that. The comment doesn't go until it's been approved as super smart, super mature, super civilized, super insightful, super not redundant. Let's do one more. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Again, I told you, if they print two letters by the same person, they've committed a crime, a fraud. That right there, by itself, regardless of anything else, is a felony charge. I'm looking right now at more comments by Ava Seavey. We already did 2 of her comments. Let's do 2 more. Wow, 4 comments. You're not hogging this thread at all, Ava, rather. She writes, that is so true. Fuck, I guess I have to read the comment before it because it... NLB from Brooklyn writes, his central platform will do almost nothing to make housing more affordable to more than a few lucky lottery winners. Half true, half false. I see none of the creative new proposals like the bike sharing program and walkable urban planning initiatives we got under Bloomberg. False. Also, I've been frustrated with his inability to open up public communication channels as any emails and tweets I've sent to him or government agencies have all been completely ignored. True and false. No, Bloomberg and Giuliani would never respond to people either. No politician does. Try contacting write some emails to your representatives, see if they all write back. It's fucking lies. Even if it's true, it's still deceptive because they all do it. So if you singled out de Blasio, you're lying. Even if you tell the truth, you're still lying. You can lie by telling the truth and vice versa. If I haven't made that clear, debate me online, you motherfuckers. Also, I've been frustrated. How about some semblance of effort to reach out to the citizens who are trying to engage you? Now, that's a legitimate complaint. De Blasio doesn't do a radio show where he takes calls, even though that was a fake PR stunt by most politicians who use it to cheat. And he doesn't do town halls, which are also somewhat fake. Giuliani and Bloomberg would do those. You go out and you answer questions to the public, but those are also fake PR things. But regardless, he is right. One flaw of de Blasio is he doesn't reach out to the general public as much as he should, as a mayor should. Of course, you could say that about every elected politician that exists. Duh. Ava then writes back, that is so true. He campaigned on a platform of transparency, as Bloomberg did. Go to his Facebook page sometime for a real laugh. Some low-level intern posts. They get tons of comments, and never is there a response to any comments whatsoever. Really, let's go to Bloomberg and Giuliani's pages. He has dropped a veil of secrecy over the people as well as the press. Just what is he trying to hide? It's a completely empty comment, and it's redundant, almost. The only thing she says in there that's insight is go look at his Facebook page. Okay, but now that's insightful. I wouldn't have thought to do that. And you say he doesn't respond. Well, of course they don't respond. Most people don't, especially depending on how much traffic there is. We don't know. But again, if Ava was allowed to write a comment, they committed a federal crime, a fraud, because it goes across state lines. New York Times. Remember, all this shit is federal because it goes across state lines. Hell, you could actually bring the New York Times to the International World Court and hang them for crimes against humanity, war crimes. We hung newspaper reporters in Nuremberg, and we're going to have to start hanging more newspaper editors again. So Ava not only writes again, third time. Remember, there may be more. I'm not going through most of the 81 comments. Wait, she then writes another comment which says, Ava Seavey, Mayor de Blasio has succeeded in giving the word progressive a very negative connotation. It's not progressive to conspire with wealthy elitists in real estate to undermine hardworking New Yorkers. It's not progressive to ignore an exploding homeless crisis, and certainly not progressive to throw the best police force in the U.S. under a bus, while all the while being protected by them. It's all rhetoric, all talking points. This person is a troll. And that's why they printed at least 4 of her comments. All lies, because she's a troll. Hey, maybe she works at the New York Times. That's how a lot of these dirty media outlets do it. Same thing Hitler and Stalin did. As murders, rapes, subway crime, and shootings rise, it is also not progressive to deny the facts. Really? So, is that good or bad? Because you liked it when Giuliani and Bloomberg did it, and so did the New York Times. As de Blasio has built his illegal wall around Gracie Mansion to keep the people away and have zero transparency, so the people have built a wall to shield themselves from this arrogant, inexperienced, ineffectual mayor. Ineffectual. He's done more in his first year than I think any other mayor I've ever seen. It's a complete lie. But again, why bother? Truth doesn't matter anymore. One can only hope that more than 17% of voters will turn out for next election to be sure he's one-time mayor. Ta-da! Right there, that one sentence. You could hang. You could literally execute every editor and the publishers and the fucking 14 censors for that one sentence, because that is the top number one talking point of the 1%. When people like me would point out the truth, which is 75% of voters voted against the NYPD and charter schools and horse carriages and Republicans. 75%. The rich white men all voted against the Republicans. The poor white men all voted against the Republicans. Every demographic, age group, race, all voted for de Blasio, the Democrat, against the Republicans and the 1% and the New York Times. So they couldn't disprove that. So they had to come up with a spin, a Nazi spin, which was, most voters didn't vote. Well, that's the case in every election. In every election for Bloomberg and Giuliani, you're heroes. 80% of voters didn't vote, you fucking liars. So the talking point changed to almost nobody voted. It had such low turnout. She's saying here 17% of voters turned out and voted for de Blasio. Well, okay, if you say that, you've just committed fraud and conspiracy, organized crime. Because it's not very hard to prove that that's a lie. The statement is a lie. Again, you can lie by telling the truth. To say that 17% of voters turned out, so nobody voted for de Blasio, is true, but it's a lie. It's a lie because nobody stopped the other 83% from voting. You see? If de Blasio had blocked voters, if he had done things to restrict voting rights, like, say, the Republicans do almost always, then you might have an argument. The people of New York City had the choice to vote for the NYPD, and they all said no. The people of New York City, the 83% who didn't vote for de Blasio, all could have voted for the NYPD and charter schools, and they all said nope. In fact, it was clear that de Blasio was going to win. It's a Democratic town. There's a reason why nobody came out to vote, because they saw the result was going to be what they all wanted, a Democratic mayor. No more billionaires robbing us, blind and destroying the city. Everything the Republicans do is a lie. Should we do one more short one? Will from New York. I think Will already had a comment in here. I'm starting to see a pattern here. The same trolls are allowed to spread lies and lies and lies. Just pick up the trash. That's Will's entire comment. Just pick up the trash. It does elevate. You got to admit, it elevates the conversation. It teaches us a lot more about life. We've learned a lot more about the mayorship. Of course, Giuliani and Bloomberg were notorious for the filthiest city in America. See, even if you told the truth, you're still lying, you fucking liars. Let's do one more short one. A lot of these are too long. Oh my God. Oh no, that's Ava Sawyer. It's one we already saw before. Here's Mike from New York City with a New York Yankees logo. So he likes Bloomberg because Bloomberg created a new stadium and they've increased the prices of going to Yankees game by fucking 800% or whatever it is. Fucking hot dogs $9. I love Mayor Bloomberg. Mike says, after messing up last winter with the record cold, at least he's now getting the weather right. What the fuck? I don't even know what the fuck you're saying. The record cold? What the fuck are you talking about? And now he's getting the weather right? That remember, you forget that comment was screened. They looked and said, is it smart? Yes. Is it mature? Yes. Is it honest? Yes. Is it not redundant? Yes. Is it insightful? Yes. Does it elevate the conversation and discourse? Yes. After messing up last winter with the record cold, at least now he's got the weather right. I'm an expert on New York City. The fuck is this asshole talking about? And there's a reply from Fran Sawyer from New York who wrote, he's creating an atmosphere. Whoa. That's the smartest comments that exist? He's creating an atmosphere. What the I have no idea what the fuck these two idiots are talking about. Insanity. Now, that's different than Bloomberg, for example, who nickel and dimed the city and didn't put chains on all the city buses and ambulances. Even the city's snowplows got stuck in 3 inches of snow. Bloomberg, when there was an ice storm, the entire city was covered. It snowed like a foot, and then it was massive ice storm. So that was the worst I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't even get my bike out. It was locked to a pole, and it was frozen in 4 inches of ice on top of like 13 inches of snow. And everybody was saying, you have to stop the alternate side of the street parking. That's where everybody has to move their cars every day to fucking, so they can street sweep. There's no street sweepers. It's an ice storm. Everything's fucking frozen, you dickhead. But Bloomberg said, nope, we're not giving you guys a pass because now we can write millions of tickets because you didn't move your cars. And the whole city, right wing and left wing, were like, you're a fucking douchebag. That's just one of billions of Bloomberg scandals. If you think billion sounds like an exaggeration, try me, motherfuckers. You don't know anything about Bloomberg. So, well, maybe you can name millions, but billions? You have no fucking clue, do you? You really don't think I can go on forever with endless details? You see me I can whip out a zillion endless details. Example, when there was one blizzard and all the buses stopped working, even the subways stopped working because Bloomberg had fucked planning up and preparing for the snowstorm to try and nickel and dime the city, save some money so he could give his friends more pay raises. So they nickel and dime the fucking cleanup. And now how do snowplows get stuck in 3 inches of snow? Because they don't have any chains on the wheels. And why don't they have chains on the wheels? Because the mayor didn't want to spend the money for overtime to put the people in there. You see? To fucking get the workers to put the fucking chains on. Paying them overtime. He was nickel and diming the city. People died because of Bloomberg's crimes. A bunch of people were stuck on an elevated 7 train. You're on a train, on an elevated track, in a blizzard. For 7 hours, there's no bathrooms. There's no food. You can't get off because you're on an elevated train track. You can't get out legally and walk off. 7 hours. How did the people piss, shit, or eat? Bloomberg should have hung for that one crime alone. But here's a funny example of just how insane all of this is. Bloomberg, and he got laughed at by everyone. He said, use this time, you can't get to work because nothing's working. No mass transit is working because I'm in charge of it. None of it's working. The ambulances aren't working. The snowplows aren't working. You can't drive. You can't go anywhere because there's all the roads were clogged. But you had city buses clogging streets because it's all fucking a foot of snow. And nobody can get any traction because nobody's wearing chains on the fucking wheels of the city vehicles. Completely shut down an entire city. Bloomberg's response? Use this time wisely. Go see a Broadway musical. Why didn't I think of that? I can't get to work. I'm not going to get paid because I can't get to work. Okay, why don't I go see a $400 Broadway musical? Now, of course, I can't get to it. There's no cabs. There's no buses. There's no subways. Can't bike. He's the most fucking insane lunatic you can name in human history. And I said this 10 years ago. I challenged every historian. We're going to put my boy Bloomberg against every villain in human history you can name. Genghis Khan. You can pick Caligula. Pick them all. And I'm going to let you even go further. I'm going to let you combine every lunatic in human history. Every dictator, maniac, fucktard in human history. You're going to put them all together. And you're going to take me and my boy Bloomberg on. Bring it on, motherfuckers. Bloomberg is more insane, batshit, flat out insane, and many people have pointed this out, even his allies, than every madman in the history of politics combined. Sounds like an exaggeration? Debate me, coward, or else shut the fuck up. Let's do one more, because I really do enjoy breaking these things. I wish I could go into more details for each letter, but I'm not going to waste your time. Long letter by some guy. I don't know if it's pro or negative, so I'm not going to read it. Mark replies, you're commenting from Portland, Oregon? Why does anything de Blasio do matter to you? It's a valid point. It's a little suspicious. Lady Scorpio replies, she's from Mother Earth. I'm not sure who we is with reference to Bloomberg. Maybe you were in awe of his money and felt reassured. I wasn't and didn't. I'm not thrilled with de Blasio either. Of course, now, if you were to ask her why... Now, notice she didn't give a reason. Again, when a person doesn't give a reason, they're lying. Some people say, no, it doesn't disprove you're lying. Actually, it does. Because if you're honest, you know you have an obligation to cite a specific concrete example. So, if you don't cite one example to back your point, I'm not thrilled with de Blasio either, because then you're dishonest. It's empty rhetoric. Without backup, it's empty rhetoric. The moon is made of cheese. I'm not happy that the earth is flat. Well, tell us why you're not happy that the earth is flat. You fucking liars. Oh my God. Done. Holy shit. Longest video I've ever made. I don't even know if I can fucking upload this motherfucker. Remember, people, the New York Times is the dirtiest paper on earth. All the papers are run by billionaires. They don't make money. The newspapers don't make money. They're shell corporations, meaning mafia, but they're super mafia because they control the politicians, they control the police, they control everything. That's why they bought money-losing newspapers. You have a right to fight back. If you don't stop these Nazis, then you're part of the problem. I work every day to stop these Nazis, first at least by exposing them. Now help us out. And remember, you can sue the New York Times tomorrow. They owe you and the rest of us trillions of dollars. They literally helped steal, and they pocketed billions of it. None of it's remotely legal. Spread the word. None of it is remotely legal. Have a nice day, people, and good luck to us, because I think the human race is doomed, and they should be doomed.